There is a specific kind of silence that exists only in fertility clinics. It's a heavy, sterile silence, filled with the smell of antiseptic and the suppressed tears of couples who are trying to buy hope. I lived in that silence for 3 years. My name is Thomas. I'm 38. I come from old money, as they say. My family owns a portfolio of private medical facilities and research labs across the state. I don't manage the day-to-day operations. I prefer to stay in the background, managing the investments. So most of the staff at our hospitals don't recognize me. My wife, Jessica, was the love of my life. Or so I thought. We had everything: the estate, the travel, the luxury cars. But we didn't have a child. For 3 years we tried. We went through rounds of IVF that were physically draining for her and emotionally crushing for me. I felt like a failure. The doctors told us the issue was likely male factor infertility, specifically regarding motility. I took the supplements. I changed my diet. I stopped drinking. I did everything to give Jessica the baby she desperately wanted. Then, 6 months ago, we got the news. The miracle. We were seeing a new specialist, Dr. Adrian Thorne. He was the rock star of the fertility world, handsome, charismatic, and with a success rate that seemed statistically impossible. Jessica adored him. She said he listened in a way other doctors didn't. After just 2 cycles with Dr. Thorne, Jessica was pregnant. We were ecstatic. I cried when I saw the ultrasound. I went out and bought a crib that cost more than my first car. I started setting up a trust fund for my son, ensuring his future would be secure before he even took his first breath. Jessica was glowing. She was finally the mother she wanted to be. But amidst the joy, something gnawed at me, a tiny logical splinter in my brain. We had used my frozen samples from a year ago because I was away on business during the ovulation window. But the lab report from that specific batch had shown 0% viability. It only takes one swimmer, Dr. Thorne had told me with a winning smile, clapping me on the back. Miracles happen, Thomas. Don't question a blessing. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But I didn't get rich by believing in miracles. I got rich by auditing them. Part 2. The HIPAA violation. The doubt consumed me. I couldn't sleep. I started looking at Jessica differently. I noticed how her eyes lit up whenever she had an appointment with Dr. Thorne. I noticed she would schedule appointments for checkups that weren't on the standard prenatal calendar. He's just being extra careful because it's a high-risk pregnancy, she told me, dismissing my concerns. You should be grateful he cares so much. I decided to stop being the husband and start being the owner. As the majority shareholder of the medical group that owned Dr. Thorne's clinic, I had administrative privileges that Dr. Thorne didn't know about. I didn't need to break into a filing cabinet. I just needed to log into the back-end server with my executive credentials. One night, while Jessica was asleep, dreaming of our future family, I went to my study. I logged into the clinic's internal communication system. I searched for Jessica's patient file, standard notes, prescriptions, ultrasounds. Then I checked the internal memos attached to her file. There was a note from the head embryologist, dated the day of the conception. Flagged. Sample mismatch. Donor ID does not match husband ID. Dr. Thorne overrode protocol. See manual entry. My heart hammered against my ribs. Sample mismatch? I dug deeper. I pulled the security logs for the cryo lab on that date. The video footage showed Dr. Thorne entering the lab alone. He didn't retrieve my sample. He retrieved a vial from the private donor section. But the real smoking gun wasn't in the lab. It was in his email. Since the clinic servers were company property, I had legal access to audit them for quality assurance. I searched for my wife's name in Dr. Thorne's sent folder. There were dozens of emails, but they weren't doctor-patient communications. Thorne. He has no idea. The baby is healthy. He's going to raise our son, Jess. He's going to pay for his college, give him the legacy, and you and I will have a link forever. Jessica, reply. I almost felt bad when he cried at the ultrasound today. Almost. But he's so boring, Adrian. He's just a wallet. You're the father. This baby will have your eyes. I sat in the dark, the blue light of the monitor illuminating my face. They hadn't just used a donor. They hadn't just cheated. Dr. Adrian Thorne, the god of fertility, had used his own sample to impregnate my wife, with her full consent, passing it off as a medical miracle to trick me into raising his child and passing down my family's fortune to his biological offspring. It was diabolical. It was medical rape. It was fraud on a level I couldn't comprehend. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to storm into the bedroom and scream. But then I looked at the email again. Thorne. Once the baby is born and Thomas signs the birth certificate, he is legally the father. He's on the hook for support for 18 years, even if we divorce. Secure the bag, baby. Secure the bag. I closed the laptop. If they wanted a legal battle, I would give them a war. Part 3. The Happy Father Act. The next 3 months were the best acting performance of my life. I went to every appointment. I shook Dr. Thorne's hand. I thanked him for the gift he had given us. You're a wizard, Doc, I said, looking him dead in the eye. Just doing my job, Thomas, he smirked. I played the doting husband. I threw Jessica a baby shower that cost $50,000. But behind the scenes, I was assembling a team. Not just divorce lawyers. I hired a specialized team of medical malpractice attorneys and private investigators. We dug into Thorne's past. And guess what? Jessica wasn't the first. We found anomalies in 6 other successful pregnancies at his clinic. 6 other miracles where the fathers had low motility. Thorne wasn't just having an affair with my wife. He had a God complex. He was spreading his DNA across the city, using wealthy women as unsuspecting or suspecting vessels. My lawyer, a shark named Eleanor, laid it out for me. If we expose this now, the clinic shuts down, the stock tanks, and you lose money. Plus, Jessica might claim you consented to a donor to cover her tracks. So what do? I asked. We wait for the birth, Eleanor said. We need the DNA. Once the baby is born, we get a court-ordered paternity test. And we need to trap her in the fraud financially. Jessica was pushing for me to update my will and the family trust. We need to make sure the baby is the primary beneficiary the moment he's born, she nagged. It's for his safety. Of course, honey, I said. I'll have the lawyers draw up the irrevocable heir trust. It will grant the child access to $50 million immediately upon birth certificate signage. Her eyes lit up like diamonds. She texted Thorne immediately after I said that. I saw it on the keylogger I had installed on her phone. Part 4. The delivery room. The day came. Jessica went into labor. Dr. Thorne was there, of course. He was the attending physician. I watched my wife hold the hand of her lover while she pushed out their son. When the baby was born, I looked at him. He was innocent. He didn't ask for this mess. It broke my heart that I couldn't love him, that he was a product of deceit. He looks just like you, Thomas, Jessica lied, sweating and smiling. He certainly has. Strong genes, I said. Then came the paperwork, the birth certificate. The nurse brought the clipboard. Dr. Thorne was hovering, watching closely. This was the moment. If I signed, I was the legal father. I was the hook. I took the pen. I hovered it over the father line. Jessica held her breath. I put the cap back on the pen. "Actually," I said, my voice calm, "I think we need to wait on this." The room went quiet. The machines beeped. "What? Why?" Jessica asked, panic rising in her voice. "Just a formality," I said. "I have my own legal team outside. They have some papers for us to sign first, regarding the trust." Jessica relaxed. She thought I was securing the money. "Send them in," she said greedily. Part 5. The Service of Process. The doors opened, but it wasn't a notary with a checkbook. It was Eleanor, followed by 2 police officers and a process server. Dr. Thorne stepped forward. "Excuse me, this is a sterile environment. You can't be here." "Dr. Adrian Thorne?" the officer asked. "Yes. You are under arrest for medical malpractice, fraud, and sexual battery by deception." Thorne's face went white. "What? This is insane. Thomas, tell them." I stood up. I looked down at Jessica, who was clutching the baby, her face a mask of horror. "I didn't sign the birth certificate, Jessica," I said, "because that is not my son." "Of course he is," she screamed. "How could you say that?" Eleanor stepped forward and handed Jessica a thick file. "This is a motion for an emergency DNA test," Eleanor said. "And this is a printout of the emails between you and Dr. Thorne, conspiring to defraud Thomas's estate." I looked at Thorne, who was being cuffed. "I own the clinic, Adrian," I whispered to him. "Did you really think I wouldn't check the servers?" The look of realization on his face was worth every penny I had spent on the investigation. He realized his career, his freedom, and his reputation were incinerated in a single second. "And Jessica," I turned to my wife, "the trust papers you wanted? I updated them last week. The irrevocable trust is now a charitable trust. In the event of a non-paternity event, which is a clause I added, all assets intended for the child are diverted to an orphanage charity." "You can't do this," she shrieked. "I just had a baby." "You had his baby," I pointed to Thorne. "Let him pay for the diapers." "Oh, wait, he can't. I've already frozen his assets, pending the malpractice lawsuit." Part 6. The Clinical Trial. I walked out of that hospital room and never looked back. The fallout was national news. The fertility fraud doctor story was everywhere. Because I owned the parent company, I had to do massive damage control. I publicly fired Thorne, sued him for damages, and offered free DNA testing to every patient he had ever treated. It turned out there were 15 other children, 15 other families he had destroyed with his narcissism. Jessica tried to fight me for alimony. She tried to claim I had emotionally consented by acting like the father for 9 months. The judge laughed her out of court. Because I never signed the birth certificate, I had zero financial obligation to the child. Thorne is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence. His medical license was revoked permanently. Jessica? Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents. She's raising the kid alone. She works as a receptionist at a dental office. She tried to reach out once, sending me a picture of the boy on his first birthday. "He asks about his daddy," she wrote. I didn't reply. His daddy is in cell block D. I sold the fertility clinic. I couldn't stomach the business anymore. I took the money and bought a vineyard in Italy. I met someone new recently. A woman who doesn't care about my money because she has her own. We're taking it slow. No rush. No miracles. Just truth. Sometimes, when I'm walking through the vines, I think about that sterile silence in the clinic. I broke that silence, and the sound of the glass shattering was the sweetest music I've ever heard.